Hi, this is Ali Arango of Little Guy CGI, and today I would like to show you how to make a dragon in Blender 2.78C. So let's get started. Okay, if this is your first time in Blender, I recommend you go to File, User Preferences, go to Input, and then choose Select with left click. Blender's default select is with right click, and this may confuse you if you're coming from Adobe programs or other 3D programs. Okay, while we're in the user preferences, let's click on add-ons. Make sure you have a check mark next to 3D view : 3D navigation. Then we're going to scroll down. Okay, make sure you have a check mark next to mesh : F2, mesh : inset polygon, mesh : loop tools, as well as mesh : relax. Okay, scroll further down the page. Make sure that you have a check mark next to Pi menu : 3D viewport Pi menus, as well as put a check mark next to Pi menu : UI Pi menu official. I'll then just click here to exit out of our user preferences. Okay, when you first come into Blender, this is your standard scene. We have our cube here, our one camera here, a light here. We are currently in object mode. You can see which mode you're in by looking right here. To navigate your view, if you click on the navigation tab, you can click these buttons right here. To quickly navigate your view, if you hold the middle mouse button, you can rotate your view. If you hold shift as well as the middle mouse button, you can pan your view. You can zoom in by rolling the mouse button one way or zoom out by rolling the mouse wheel another way. You also can hold control as well as the middle mouse button and then push in, or then pull the mouse back so that you have smoother zoom ins and zoom outs. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to delete this cube. So we're going to press X to bring up our delete menu and then choose delete. We're then going to hold shift, and then while holding shift, press A. This brings up our add to menu. We're then going to select mesh and then select cylinder. Now when we bring this cylinder in, when you look over to your left, you'll see a menu that gives you options for the cylinder that you just brought in. So you can see right here, this says vertices 32. We don't need this many vertices, so we're going to click here. We're going to change this from 32 to 8. Then I'm going to press enter to lock that in. Okay, most of our dragon will come from this cylinder right here. So currently we're in object mode. What we want to do is go to edit mode. So with this cylinder selected, we're going to click here. Then we're going to click here to go into edit mode. Okay, the first thing we want to do to this cube is we want to set it up so we can split the cube in half. So we're going to click here to go to front view. So when we look here, we can see we're in front perspective mode. I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. We want to get rid of this cap that's on the top. We could have done that when we brought the cylinder in. However, it's fairly easy to get rid of this. So we're going to click here to go to phase select. Right here you can see the ways that you manipulate your meshes inside of Blender. You have vertice select here, edge select here, face select here. So we're going to click on face select. We're now going to press A to deselect our mesh. We're then going to left click here to select this top face. We're then going to press X, which brings up our delete menu. We're then going to choose faces to delete. We're going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm then going to left click here to select this face. I'm then going to press X to bring up our delete menu and then choose faces to delete. Okay, so with that done, we're going to click here to go to front view. We're in front perspective mode. We want to be in front orthographic mode. Perspective mode is a mode that very similar to what you see in real life. We want more of a blueprint kind of seeing mode, and that is orthographic mode. So see right here where this says view perspective / ortho, we can click here, and this took us into front ortho or front orthographic mode. The reason why you tend to use modes like this is because when you want to do things like what we're about to do, which is delete this half of the cylinder, it's easier to, it tends to be easier to do things like that in modes like orthographic mode. So we want to delete this part of the mesh as well as this back part of the mesh. So I'm going to click front to go back. Now if I select it, if I select just this part right here now, Blender will just select the front part of the mesh. We want this part as well as the part that we can't see, which is behind this part of the mesh. So to get to that, we're going to press Z, then we're going to select Wireframe Mode. So here in Wireframe Mode, now when we go to select this side, we'll select the front and the back side of this piece of the mesh. So with that done, I'm going to hover my mouse about here. I'm going to press B for box select. I'm then going to left click and drag, select a little bit past the halfway point right here. I'm then going to press X to bring up the delete menu, then choose faces to delete. So with that half of this mesh deleted, you might say, well, why are we deleting half of the mesh? The reason why we're doing this is because when you work in 3D, wherever you can save time, it's generally good to do that. So we can save time here because our dragon is a bisymmetrical creature, which basically means we have, limbs, eyes, things that tend to be on one side of the creature also tend to be on the other side. So because of that, we can use a feature in Blender called the Mirror Modifier, which will effectively allow us to do about half of the amount of work that we normally would have to do. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to click on, looks like this wrench. This is our modifier menu. We're going to click here. We're then going to go to mirror. We're then going to left click. When we left click, we can see right here, we have this mesh showing here. It's kind of transparent though. So I tend to like this part, which is from the mirror modifier, to look like this part of the mesh. So to do that, what we're going to do is, we're going to do a few different options. One, we don't want this part of the mesh, which is from the mirror modifier, pulling apart from this part of the mesh. So we're going to put a check mark here next to clipping. So this part of the mesh will keep from pulling apart from this part of the mesh because we have this clipping, checked here. If sometimes things will come up while you're modeling where you have to separate this piece from this piece, then you would just go back and uncheck this clipping right here. So with that done, we're going to click right here. And by clicking here, now our mirror modifier part of our mesh looks just like the other part of the mesh. So I like how this currently looks right here. So with all that set up, we're going to press Z and then select solid to go back to solid view. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to click here to go to our right view. It doesn't look that different from the front view. However, if you get confused and are not sure where you're at as far as view, you can just look right here. You can see we're currently in front orthographic view. Okay, right now I want you to basically think of this as a dragon's head. So what we're going to do is, because we're in front orthographic view, normally when you work in 3D, it's useful to rotate on the X, Y, or Z axis. Because we're in orthographic mode, we can just press A to select our mesh, then press R to rotate. So we're going to rotate like this. So just think of this as the dragon's head being this way. Just pay attention to this line and think of it as its head, basically going this way, right? I am going to push this forward a little bit because I'm looking at this as being like our center. So what we kind of want is for the dragon's head to be like this, for the neck to come up, and then for the body to kind of go like that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to press A to deselect. We're then going to click here to go to edge select. We're then going to hold the Alt key on our keyboard. Now, because we're holding the Alt key, while I hold the Alt key, when I left click here, I selected this entire loop of edges. And just one more time, just to get it, since we're just starting off, holding the Alt key allows you to select loops of pieces of your mesh. Okay, so with this edge of this loop of faces selected, what we want to do is hold down Control. I'm then going to right click here. Now, because I was holding Control and I right clicked here, Blender automatically extruded that loop of edges right to here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Control again and then right click here again. Now what Blender did was it not only extruded, but actually rotated to try to aim towards my mouse, which is very cool. So what I'm going to do now is hold Control again and then right click here again. And basically, if you look at this, this is kind of like the head. This is basically like the neck turning down of our dragon. So now I'm going to hold Control again. I'm then going to right click again. And you can see Blender nicely extrudes and rotates to try to match where we are right clicking at as we hold Control. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold Control and then I'm going to right click right here. I'm now going to press S to scale and scale this up some. I'm going to take the manipulator and push this down some. And this is this will be our head. This will be like the neck. This will be going into the body. I want this here to be straight. So now this is, angled here. So how can I make this easily straight? The way I can do this, and this is fairly easily, is I can press S to scale, which just requires me pressing the S key on the Y axis. So I just pressed Y, and then I'm going to press 0. And then I'm going to left click to lock that scale in. Okay, as we go through this tutorial, we basically want to get our basics in first. So don't get too concerned about the early details. Okay, so what we're going to do now, since we have this line, going straight here, we're going to press E ourselves. So before we were just holding Control and then, right clicking. Now we pressed E to extrude, and then we're going to press Y. So now we're actually manually extruding ourselves. So we're going to extrude to about here, and then left click to lock that extrusion in. Okay, I want to move the view that way a little bit, so I'm going to hold Shift as well as holding the middle mouse button and drag, and this just pans the view. So what I'm going to do now is press E to extrude on the Y-axis again. I'm going to come out to about here. I'm then going to press S to scale down some. I'm then going to press E to extrude on the Y-axis again. Then come out to here, then left click to lock that in. Then I'm going to press S to scale here as well. Okay, currently we only see our dragon mesh so far from this side. Let's hold the middle mouse button to look, and the width is decent. You want to typically, when you're modeling, you want to look from front to side fairly often. So basically, this is what we have here. We're in User Orthographic. Remember, if you're curious about which view you're in, you can look here. I'm going to click here. See, when I click there, it went right back to right orthographic. Basically, this is what's going on here. This is going to end up being our head. This is our neck right here. This is the beginning of our body right here. This is the section of our body where our legs will eventually come from. This is the body here going, well, this is the main body. This is going into the tail, and this is basically the tail right here. Okay, and as we work our way through here, again, you want to think mainly of the basics, starting off. What we want from here is we want to bring out our legs from this section. So what we're going to do is we're going to hover here. We're going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, we're going to press R. See that line that popped up? That's a preview line for a loop cut. We're going to roll our mouse one time, and then what that does is that puts 2 loop cuts. So what we're going to do is we're going to left click, and then left click again to totally lock those loop cuts in. I'm now going to press A to deselect. Basically what we did there is we have this spot now for our front leg to come out, and then we have a spot now here for our back leg to come out. And, and then we have our separation in between. Okay, we can adjust our proportions and sizes as we move through this. I generally want these faces here, I should say, these faces here and these faces here to be the size they are. I'm going to put another loop cut right here. I'm going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, I'm going to press R and then left click once, and then I'm going to left click a second time to totally lock that loop cut in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do is start forming the back leg. The way that we're going to do this is we're going to click here to go to Phase Select. We're then going to click here, hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, click here. I'm then going to press X to bring up our Delete menu. I'm then going to choose Faces to Delete. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to left click here, hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, click here. We're then going to press X to bring up our Delete menu, then choose Faces to Delete. Okay, this is where our legs are going to come from. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. And we did that so we could see right here. We're going to go to Edge Select. We're going to left click here. We're going to hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, click here. With these two edges selected, we're going to press E to extrude on the X axis. Then we're going to pull out like this. We're then going to left click to lock that in. I'm holding them in the mouse button to rotate the view just so I can see how far the mesh that we extruded out is coming out. With these two edges selected still, we're going to press F to fill in that space between. We're then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to hold Alt. We're holding Alt so we can select this entire loop right here. So while still holding Alt, I'm going to left click here. We selected this entire loop of edges there. I'm then going to press F to fill in that space right there. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we have now is essentially a box right here. We need more geometry, so to get that, we're going to hover here. We're going to hold Control, and then we're going to, while holding Control, press R to put a loop cut in. I'm then going to left click once, and then left click a second time to totally lock that loop cut in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. So when I said put more geometry in, we now have just more faces here than we would have had before. So with our loop cut here, what we're going to do now is make sure we're on Edge Select. We're going to hold Alt. Then while holding Alt, we're going to left click right here to select this entire loop of edges right here. We're then going to press E to extrude on the Z axis and then just come down some like that. We're then going to left click to lock that extrusion in. Okay, now with this loop of edges selected, we're going to press S to scale on the Z axis 0 and then left click to lock that scale in. Okay, you can see this is a square right here. We really don't want that. We want this to be circular, so we're going to use our loop tools to do that. You'll have the loop tools option if you followed along in the beginning of this video where I showed you where to click to make sure you had the particular add-ons that I showed you activated. So I'm going to press W. This brings up our specials menu. I'm then going to select loop tools. And then I'm going to go to circle and then left click. And what this did is this just quickly took that square shape and made this into a circular shape. Now, if for some reason you do not have loop tools and you don't have the ability to just, do what we did quickly, you can do this manually. And that would just be, you would just go to vertices select, you would grab the different vertices of the square shape, and then you would just push them into the circular shape. This what I just showed you just allows us to do that quickly. But I don't want you to think that if for some reason your loop tools option doesn't pop up that you can't continue on with the tutorial. You would just, again, click here to go to vertices select, and then you would manually click the vertices and then basically push them into the shape that you see here now. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to click here to go to the right view. I'm going to hold Control. We're in right orthographic view. If for some chance you see this where things look different, you're probably in right perspective view. Just click here and this will bring you back to right orthographic view. So I'm going to hold Control and then I'm going to right click right here to just extrude this leg down some. I'm then going to move my mouse back here because I want this to come and curve this way. So that's why I have my mouse here instead of here. So by having my mouse, almost towards the back of here, this, curves this way. When I say this, I mean this edge of loops. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to put my mouse here. My plan is to have this curve like this. So I've had it right. I have it right here. I'm holding control. And I'm going to right click right there. I'm going to press S to scale here. I'm going to press R to rotate here. And I left click to lock that in. I'm now holding control again. I want this to pretty much come straight down now. So now I'm just going to right click there. Okay, extruding that way is fairly easy. It's important to know that the reason why it's fairly easy to extrude that is because we're in orthographic view. If we were in perspective view, there most likely will be issues with what we're doing here. So I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to hold my middle mouse, but I'm taking a look here. Our foot's going to come from here. I'm going to click here to go to edge select. I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, click here. I'm then going to press S to scale up like that. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold control, and then while holding control, I'm going to press the R key. I'm then going to left click to put a loop cut right here. Because I left click one time, this loop cut is movable. I'm going to move this down, something like that. I'm then going to left click a second time to totally lock that loop cut in. I'm holding the middle mouse button to take a look. This loop cut is slightly angled. I'd rather it be straight, so I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis 0, and then left click to lock that scale in. So you can see now the loop cut is straight. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, I'm going to select here. I'm currently on edge select. I'm going to hold Control. While holding Control, I'm going to press F to bring up our Faces menu. I'm then going to select Grid Fill to fill this in right here, that space. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold my middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm taking a look. Okay, what we're going to do now is hover our mouse here, hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, press B. Then I'm going to draw a zoom box to zoom in right here. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back some. I want these two faces right here. I'm going to click here to go to face select. I'm going to click here, hold Shift, and click here. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to get kind of a 3D view, if you will, so I can see what I'm doing. I want to extrude out here, so I'm going to press E to extrude like this. I'm going to press S to scale that down some, like that. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press E to extrude again, like this. I'm going to push down some like that. Then I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis, something like that. I'm holding the middle mouse button just to see what the view looks like. I want this to be, it kind of looks, a little bit distorted. I want that to be easy to control. So I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis 0, and then left click to lock that in. I made that straight, not quite easy to control. It's our angle, so we'll work with it. I'm going to push this forward. Remember what I was telling you about, like the loop cuts, how you can just reshape manually? That's basically what I'm doing here. I'm rotating the view to see what's going on here. So I want it to be a basic square without it being too. You see how you kind of have to rotate the view to actually see what the shape is like. I have that actually want to pull this up something like this. I'm going to press E to extrude again. Then I want this part to come down. Okay, with this here, I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to right click. Doesn't look like we did anything, but what we did was we made new geometry right there. Because we made new geometry right there, we can press S to scale in like this. I'm then going to left click to lock that scale in like that. Again, as you model, don't think so much about the immediate details. At least, try not to get too into it. Get your basic shapes first. Once you have your basic shapes, and then you can, go for more. So with this here, We're going to press E to extrude to go in like this. I'm going to press S to scale some like that. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view just to take a look. Okay, with these faces selected here, we want to press E to extrude again. We're then going to right click again to get that geometry to stay in place. Doesn't look like we did anything. We made new geometry. Because we made new geometry, we can press S to scale. If you're sitting there like, what am I doing? Basically, we are making the feet of the dragon. I find that they tend to get a lot of attention. You want to have the claws looking nice, so we're spending some extra detail right here making these claws. So I find that the claws tend to look better when you can kind of like see the claw going into the foot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to press E to extrude. We're going to bring this out like this. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view, and I'm rotating the view just to take a look so I know what's going on. I'm going to press S to scale, bring this up. So basically what you want here is you want this claw to come out like from, it's like thinner here and fatter here. I find that tends to make things look better. So then now we're going to press E to extrude again like this. We want this claw to be 3 parts. So now we're going to press E to extrude again. We're going to press S to scale like this. If I want to pull this claw back, see how the claw is coming like this way? If my manipulator is this way, what I can do is right here, we see this says global. If I click here and change this to normal, see that now I have the ability to push this back, which is what I want. So push this back. I'm actually going to press A to deselect. We're on face select, which is good. I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, I'm going to click here. I'm going to pull this up some like this. I'm taking a look. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to zoom in, hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to click here, hold Shift and click here. I'm going to push this back some like that. I'm going to go to Edge Select. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to select here. I'm going to press S to scale there like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt and press S to scale this up some like this. I think I want this piece to be bigger here. So I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe. We can see like the internal part right here. I'm going to hold Control, hold the right mouse button, and select all of this right here. If you see what's this, this is the mirrored part of this right there. You're seeing right here. Okay, with this selected, I'm going to press S to scale this up bigger some. I'm going to press Z, go to solid view so we can see what's going on. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, so after all of that, just taking a look. Let's see how this looks for the rest of our dragon. Okay, so I'm going to go to Edge Select, which we're on. I'm going to pull this out to the side here like this. I'm going to pull this out to the side here like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to go to Face Select here. Okay, what we're going to do now is make sure we're on Face Select, which we are. We're going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, click right here. Because I was holding Alt, I selected this entire loop of faces. I'm now going to press Z, go to Wireframe. I'm going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, I'm going to press and hold the right mouse button. I'm going to drag and select here. We came to Wireframe so that we would select the front part here and the back part there. We have this whole piece of mesh. We're going to press Z, then click here to go to Solid View. Okay, with this selected, we're going to hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, press D. I'm going to right-click to get that to stay in place. When we held Shift, we duplicated all of this mesh right here. We're on normal. We want to change this from normal to global orientation. So I'm going to pull the duplicate out because that's what happened when I pushed Shift D. I want to take this and connect this right to here. We have this line here, so this won't connect up correctly right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to press A to deselect. We're going to click here to go to edge select. We're going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, we're going to click here. That, because we're holding Alt, we selected this entire loop of edges there. We're going to press X to bring up our delete menu. And what we're going to use is something called dissolve edges. So when we click this, we'll dissolve that edge, but the rest of our mesh should be left intact. So we're going to left click, and now you can see we have the same mesh just without that line going down the center there. So now we'll be able to fairly easily connect this to right here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to face select. We're going to click here. We're going to press X, bring up our delete menu. We're then going to choose faces to delete. We're going to hover here. When we hover over a piece of mesh and then press the L key, we select the entire piece of mesh. What we're going to do before we connect this is we're going to hold Shift. While holding Shift, press D. Then right click to get that duplicate to stay in place. We're going to pull this to the side so we don't, we have an easy claw basically here to duplicate. So with that done, we're going to press A to deselect there. We're going to hover here, press L to select right here. We're going to press R to rotate on the Z axis here, like this. And we're going to move this, generally into place. And what we're going to do to connect this, that works fairly well, is I'm going to press A to deselect. We're going to make sure we're on edge select. We're going to hold Alt, select here, hold Shift as well as Alt now, select here. So we have this edge selected as well as this edge selected. They both have the same amount of edges as well as vertices in them. So now what we're going to do is hold Control, and then while holding Control, press E. And then we're going to go to, and then when we held Control and press E, this brought up our edges menu. We're then going to go to Bridge Edge Loops. So now we have that little piece there selected. You might sit there and say, well, why did you do that? Normally I would have connected it by selecting a vertex here, then here, then here, then here. This just does it a little bit quicker. I find that when you can find things that are a little bit faster, it actually adds up. So now that we have this, we want this to be just like that. So what we do is we're still in edge select. We hold Alt. We click here. Because we were holding Alt, we select the entire edge loop. We press X to bring up our delete menu. And then just like we did, very shortly before, we're going to select dissolve edges. And now we have this, pretty much matched up right here. So now we go here, face select. We click here. We press X to bring up our delete menu. We choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to press A to select everything, A to deselect everything. The only reason why I did that was I just wanted to make sure I had nothing selected. So when I saw that everything was selected, I knew that when I pressed A again, nothing would be selected. So I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press L to select this entire piece. I'm going to hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, press D. I'm going to right click to get that duplicate to stay in place. That's what we did when we pressed Shift D. We just duplicated this. I'm going to push this over like this. Be careful you don't cross over in the center line. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view just so I can, see what's going on as far as being in 3D space. And now what I'm going to do is press R to rotate on the Z axis. To rotate this, I'm holding the middle mouse button to look around just to see, where I'm at as far as 3D space. We're going to do, I'm going to push this a little bit closer. We're going to do what we did, similar on the other side. Push this over. Some more like that. I press R to rotate on the Z axis like this. Push this over some more. Be careful that you don't, cross over. The center line kind of here. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, to make things easier as we work here, we actually have our Mirror Modifier options right here. We can click this I to temporarily turn off our Mirror Modifier. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to go to Edge Select. And then I am going to hold Alt, click here, hold Shift while holding Alt, then click here. I'm then going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, press E to bring up our edges menu. I'm then going to select Bridge Edge Loops. I'm then going to press A to deselect. With Edge Select still on, I'm going to hold Alt, select this edge right here, press X, and then choose Dissolve Edges. I'm just taking a look now. I held Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view after I held the middle mouse button to rotate. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to click here to turn our Mirror Modifier back on. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view like this. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate again. I want to rotate this foot here, so I'm going to press Z, then go to Wireframe. Okay, what I want to do now is hold Control, and then while holding Control, hold the right mouse button and draw a lasso select like this. By the way, we're currently on Edge Select. We'd be better on Face Select. We almost grabbed the entire mesh. We didn't. I'm going to press Z, then go to Solid View. So I'm going to hold Shift to select what we missed, which was right there. The main reason I'm doing this is because I want to connect this onto here, and I don't want this crossing over. So I'm going to press S to scale to shrink this slightly. I want to turn this foot rotated, but I don't want it totally not matching here. So what I'm going to do is turn on something called the Proportional Edit tool. So I'm going to press O, and you can see this blue ball popped up here. And what this does, this Proportional Editing tool, it allows you to manipulate more than one vertice, edge, or face at a time. So I'm going to press R to rotate. When I did that, you can see that circle that popped up. That circle shows the area of influence of the Proportional Editing tool. Now I want this to go past the foot and up towards like the knee area, so I'm rolling the mouse wheel to do that. Now with that done, I'm going to press Z. And you can see that line. That line is showing us how we're going to rotate. So now I'm going to rotate this direction. I want the area of influence to go up higher, so I'm going to roll the mouse wheel up to make it a little bit higher. Then I'm going to left click to lock that rotation in. Okay, what we're going to do now is press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hover here, then press L. I want to turn off this Proportional Editing tool. You can see it's still on there, so I'm going to press O to turn that off. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis to turn this claw. I'm going to push this back like this. I'm going to right click because I moved my mouse. Wasn't sure where I was at for a second. Now I just push this back into place. Push this generally in the area that I want it to connect at. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Push this a little bit closer to where I want it at. I'm going to press S to scale to shrink that down some. And I'm going to move this back towards the position that I want it in eventually. Okay, so now what we're going to do is press A to deselect. We need this to match up with that right there. So we're going to hold Control, and while holding Control, press R. We're going to see that preview. There's our loop cut preview. So we're going to left click once, then left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. We're then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Just taking a look. We have this, without a face here, which is good. This, we need to get rid of these faces here. So we're going to we're going to go to face select. We're going to left click here, hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, click here. We're now going to press X to bring up our delete menu. We're then going to choose faces to delete. Okay, we want to go to Edge Select. So I'm going to hold Alt and then click here. Now I'm going to hold Shift and Alt and then click here. So we have this edge loop selected here, this edge loop selected here. With that done, we're going to hold Control. While holding Control, we're going to press E. This brings up our edges menu. We're then going to choose Bridge Edge Loops. So now we have this connect it to here. We're going to press A to deselect. We want to get rid of this right here. So we're going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, we're going to left click here. I'm then going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then we're going to choose dissolve edges. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. With edge select on, I'm going to hold Alt and then select here. I'm going to press S to scale. I'm going to pull this up some. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis. We're just shaping the leg. I clicked here. I lost the edge loop, so I'm going to hold Alt. When I said lost it, I just meant I deselected it. So I'm just, reshaping the leg some here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is press A to deselect. Okay, so I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, now we're on edge select, which is good. We're going to click here, hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, click here. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Just so I can get a better view of, we want to extrude out this way. So I'm going to press E to extrude on the X axis. I'm going to pull this out to about here. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press S to scale on the X axis 0 to flatten that out. I'm then going to press F to fill in the area there. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt and then click here. I'm then going to press F to fill that area in there. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, press R. I'm then going to left click once and then left click a second time right here. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our Mirror Modifier. I'm going to click this eye to temporarily turn that off. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to press Z, then go to Wireframe. I'm then going to click here to go to Face Select. I'm going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, I'm going to hold the right mouse button. I'm then going to draw a lasso select right above this loop right here. I'm going to come down and grab the rest of our leg here. Then I let go of both buttons to select this geometry here. Okay, I'm going to press Z and then go back to solid view. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. Okay, what we want to do now is hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, press D. I'm then going to right click. We duplicated this geometry. We're going to take our manipulator and push this duplicate forward like this. I'm just taking a look right here. I'm going to pull this out to the side more like this. I'm going to push this up some more like that. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to right view. I'm going to hover here. We're on face select. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press L to select this. I'm going to press H to temporarily hide that, so it's still there. It's just hidden. What I want to do now is press Z, go to Wireframe. I'm going to hold Control, and then while holding the right mouse button, I'm going to drag and select a lasso around off this geometry here. And I just want to push this forward some like this, just to give some more space here. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, press H to bring back our previously hidden geometry. I'm then going to press A to deselect that. I'm then going to press Z and then select Solid to go back to solid view. Okay, I want to change the shape of this leg some. So we're about to pull this back. Uh, so we're on face select, so we're going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, click here. We're then just going to pull this back like this. Because we did this, we distorted this somewhat here, so we're going to press A to deselect. Okay, so what we're going to do to get this right is we're going to go to Edge Select, we're going to hold Alt, we're going to click here. And now with this selected, I'm going to go to right view. That put us in right orthographic view. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis 0 and then left click to lock that in. You can see that just by straightening this out, this helped us to, ease the distortion some. So I'm going to pull this back some like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt here. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis here like this. I press R to rotate on the X axis some more like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, click here. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis like this here. Pull this back some more like that. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to make sure we're on Edge Select, which we are. We're going to hold Alt, click right here. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. So now I am not currently holding any buttons. Now I'm going to hold Shift, and then I'm also holding Shift as well as Alt, and now I'm going to click right here. So now with this edge loop selected and this edge loop selected here, we're going to hold Control. While holding Control, we're going to press E. This brings up our Edges menu. We're then going to select Bridge Edge Loops. So now we have this duplicate of this leg here reshaped and now connected to the body there. So now I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, now what we're going to do is click this eye and turn our mirror modifier back on and take a look. So we're moving along. Our legs are kind of pointed towards each other here. I don't like that. So I'm going to hold Alt, click here to select that edge loop. I'm going to pull this to the side, something like that. While I'm connected here, I'm going to press S to scale. I'm then going to press A to deselect there, hold Alt, click here, press S to scale, like this. Take a look. I'll pull to the side some here, like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt here, press S to scale on the Y axis, X axis, like this. To make this thinner, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt here, press S to scale on the X axis here. Press A to deselect, hold Alt, press S to scale on the X axis here as well. And I'm going to click here, pull this out to the side like that. Push this down some. Our basic shapes are coming along. Press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to right view. I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, click here to select this edge loop right here. Okay, now I'm going to press E to extrude like this. And I'm just going to push this down some like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now with edge select on is I'm going to click right here. I'm going to hold Shift and then click here. Okay, actually, now that I think about it, I don't want this right here. I'm going to press A to deselect. Still on edge select. I'm going to just left click here. I'm then going to press the V key. I'm then going to pull down slightly. That's why I deselected here, because When we press V, we did what's called a rip. We ripped this edge from this edge. Since this was connected here, this rip went back to here as well. However, I only wanted this part separated from this part. I didn't want to go down into this part, which basically turned into the neck. So now we're going to go to face select. I'm going to hold Alt, then select here. Because there's a split, we only selected this edge of faces. I'm going to hold Shift and Alt, then select here. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis, something like this. Pull this down some. Push this back some, like this. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, if you're wondering what's going on here, we're working on the bottom jaw, the top jaw. The reason why I have my reasons for not filling in this area yet, but we're basically doing our basic work on the head now. This is starting to get in the way. This is just our basic default grid. I'm going to press N to bring up our properties panel. I'm going to go to display. Then I'm going to take away this check mark here to temporarily take away the grid floor. Then I'm going to press N to make the properties panel go away. By the way, if you've made it this far into the video, please like this video if you actually like it. Helps for the video to be spread, helps out my channel as well. So if you would go ahead and click that like button, I would really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to hover my mouse here. I'm going to hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, I'm going to press B. I'm then going to draw a zoom box here. What we want to do is hover our mouse here, hold Control, and then while holding Control, press R to put a loop cut in. We're then going to left click once, then left click a second time to totally have that loop cut locked in. We're then going to press A to deselect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is hover our mouse here, hold Shift, while holding Shift, press B to draw a zoom box. If you look right here, our eye is going to be here. When you think of an eye, it kind of curves like this, goes down like that. So to set that up, we're going to hover here, hold Control, while holding Control, press R. Move my mouse up, you can see a loop cut preview. I'm going to left click once, then left click a second time to lock that in. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. So an eye generally goes like this on the top. I'm trying to form like an arc so you can show like that on the bottom. So because of that, we're going to go to here for vertices select. We're going to click here, pull this up to form like our arc. We're going to push this down to get like the bottom part. We'll push this up to keep the shape. You might be saying like, what's going on? Well, I'm just manipulating these vertices right here. Eventually we're going to extrude, and the shape of the eye will come from the extrusion, but it'll go in this general shape that we have forming here. So I'm going to press A to deselect. We're going to need like a lip for our dragon's mouth. So we're going to go to Edge Select. We're going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, we're going to click here. We're then going to press E to extrude and then right click. Doesn't look like we did anything, but we made new geometry. Because we made that new geometry, what we can do is holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis like that. Then I'm going to press S to scale with no axis like this. And you can see that lip that we have now. So I'm pushing this out, like you can see that there. I'm going to deselect here by pressing C for paint select. And then I'm going to press the middle mouse button to just deselect right there. And then I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis some more here. I want to grab this and, change the shape of that. So I'll take this, push this forward, push that down. This is like way pushed up here. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to grab this vertice right there. Hard to see, but push that down. Just so I'm just doing this so that everything, when I say everything, I basically mean the vertices of this mesh aren't all bunched up. So now I'm just, pushing this forward some. So adjusting the vertices manually. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, so let's go ahead and form our eye socket. So I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to click here, hold shift, then click here. I'm then going to press E to extrude. I'm then going to right click to lock that extrusion in. Doesn't look like we did anything, but we made new geometry. Because we made that new geometry, we can scale that new geometry in like this. I'm pressing S to scale and then just pushing in. So then I'll left click to lock that in. I'll then press A to deselect. Okay, now we want to set things up as far as for the shaping the inside of the mouth. So we're going to click here to go to Edge Select. Okay, so now with Edge Select on, we're going to hold Alt, and while holding Alt, we're going to click right here. Because we did that, what we can do is press E to extrude, and then I'm going to right click to get that extrusion to stay in place, and now I'm just going to push this over just like that. I'm just holding the middle mouse button to take a look. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to click this I to temporarily hide our mirror modifier now. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Okay, as you work in 3D, generally you want to have quads for your faces. What do I mean by quads? See this right here? There's a vertex here, 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 as well as here. Let me go to vertex select. So this is a quad, this is a quad, this is a quad, this is a quad, quad, quad. You know, most of what you see here is quads. It's generally useful to work in quads. If you're like, why is it so useful to have quads? And a quad, again, is something that has 4 vertices. Generally, I find that loop cuts, you know, it's very nice being able to put loop cuts where you want. And as long as you have quads, most of the time you can put loop cuts fairly easily. What I find is once you start getting away from quads or faces that have 4 vertices, you start having issues as far as putting loop cuts into your mesh. So with that being said, rather than just filling this in, like just grabbing all the vertices we see here and putting a face right here, we want to make sure that we have quads here. So what we can do, if you're like, well, how do you do that? We make sure we're on vertex select. We click this vertex here. We hold Shift. While holding Shift, we press D. We then right click. We duplicated that vertex. We're then going to push this vertex over like this. I'm then going to press A2 deselect. Okay, now because we have 4 vertices here, we can just click this vertex, hold Shift, click here, and then click here, and then press F to put a face in, and we still have a quad face, 4 vertices. So now with that done, we can click here, hold Shift, click here, here, as well as here, and then press F, and now we have another face that has 4 vertices. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, as I have worked in 3D, when I first got started, people would always say quads, 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 quads. I really don't remember them saying, well, why? And I heard it so much that generally when I work, I try very hard for the most part to have quads. Sometimes there is a time and a place to go away from the quads. And again, I can't really remember hearing anybody get into it. From what I can see, if you don't have quads, again, it's fairly difficult as far as putting loop cuts in. You have to go through extra work when you have the quads in there. It's fairly easy to put in loop cuts. That's the main reason that I can see as far as modeling. Anyway, we want to pretty much do the same thing here. I just held the middle mouse button to rotate. We're going to click here. We have this one vertex selected. We hold Shift and then press D to duplicate. I right click to get that duplicate vertex to stay in place. We push this vertex out over here, and now you can see that just by doing that we have a setup where, let me press A to deselect, you can see it's here, here, and here we'll have a face, and then here, here, as well as here we'll have a face that is made up of quads as well. So we're going to click here, hold Shift, while holding Shift, click here, here, as well as here, then press F, and then going to press A to deselect. Now we'll click here, hold Shift, and click here, here, as well as here, and then press F to fill in that face. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, with those faces filled in, what we want to do is click this I to turn our mirror modifier back on. With this right here, because of this clipping, all we have to do to deal with these spaces here is just push. This clipping will make it so that now that this is touched together, these will, stay together, these being the vertices. And then I can just click here. This is what happens when you have pieces of geometry cross over the center line. However, this is easy to deal with. We can just pull back, and now that's dealt with as well. So now we'll just press A to deselect. Okay, so now we'll go to edge select. I'll click here. Push this forward like this. I'll click here. Push this forward like that. I'm going to go to vertice select and then push this down some. Push that down some. And I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I want to work on just this part of the mouth here. So a way to do that that's fairly easy is I can go to face select. And then with face select, I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to click here. I'm then going to hold Shift and Alt and then click here. I'm now going to let go of Alt, hold Shift and click here. So with all this geometry here selected, I'm going to press and hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, press H. So I hid everything but this geometry here. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to press A to deselect. With face select on, I'm going to click here, hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, click here. I'm then going to press E to extrude. I'm going to right click to get that extrusion to lock in. I'm going to press S to scale like this. I'm then going to press E to extrude on the Z axis like this. See, it's kind of wobbly, so I can press Z again. Now I'll go straight down like that. We can see this geometry starting to come out here. So what we can do is press S to scale on the X axis like that to bring it in. And that's should be good for now. We'll press A to deselect. I'll hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, press H to bring back our geometry. I'll press A to deselect. I'll hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. Roll the mouse wheel to zoom out some. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is pretty much the same thing here. We're making sure we're on the face select. I'm going to hold Alt, then click here. Let me let go of Alt, hold Shift so I can select there. Now I'm holding Shift and Alt again. I'm going to left click here, and I'm going to hold Shift and Alt. So I have this selected. I'm going to hold Shift, then press H. So I hit everything but this. I'm going to press A to deselect. With face select on, I'm going to click here, hold Shift, then click here. Then I'm going to press E to extrude. Right click to get the extrusion to stay in place. We have new geometry, so I'm going to press S to scale that geometry down. I'm going to press S to scale on the X axis here. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis here and pull this back some. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Now I'm going to press E to extrude on the Z axis. When I press Z, I already had the extrusion line. I lost it, so I'll press Z again to bring it back. I'll push straight up like this. You can see it coming through the top. So because I can see it coming through the top, I'll press S to scale it in, something like that. Hold the middle mouse button to take a look. I'll push down, something like that. I'm going to press S to scale on the X axis, something like this. The reason why I'm doing that is holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Not doing that so I can rotate the view. I'm doing that, holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm doing that because I know that I'm going to extrude in for this eye. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view, and I want to make sure there's enough space so that when this eye comes in, it doesn't run into this geometry here. So hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press S to scale on the X axis. Again, like that. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view to take a look. I'm now going to press A to deselect. I'm now holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Again, and I'm taking a look. Okay, I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, press H to bring back our geometry. that was previously hidden. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom out. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. Just taking a look. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan again. Okay, I'm going to hover my mouse here. I'm going to hold shift, and then while holding shift, press B to draw a zoom box to zoom in. I'm then going to left click to actually draw the zoom box. So now we're zooming in when I let go. Okay, what I'm going to do now is hover my mouse here. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R. A loop cut preview popped up. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel one time. Then I'm going to left click once. I'm trying to decide if I want to move the loop cuts. I'm going to move them back, something like that. I'm going to left click a second time to totally lock them in. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, hold control, and then while holding control, press R. That brought up a loop cut preview. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel once, then left click, move this back some. Did this basically just to have this geometry match the top. And I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, the reason why I put the loop cuts here is I wanted a nostril right here. So I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to click here. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click. Doesn't look like we did anything. We made new geometry here. So I'm going to press S to scale that geometry in. There's another way of doing this called inset. A lot of times, maybe not a lot. Sometimes people will say, why do you use extrude instead of inset? I'm used to using extrude. You know, they pretty much do very similar things. I'm just fairly used to extrude is the main reason why. So, okay, so with this extruded in, I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press E to extrude and extrude in more. I'm then going to left click to lock the extrusion in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, when you work in 3D, there's, many times there's multiple ways of doing things. I like this method because when we do this, it sets us up so we can add detail in for the area around the nostril. Same thing around the eye. And I mean like these faces you see here as well as these faces you see here. So what we're going to do is with face select on, we're going to click here, hold shift, click here as well as here. We're then going to press E to extrude. I'm then going to right click to get that extrusion to lock in. So we have this extra geometry here. So I'm going to roll the mouse wheel, zoom in. I'm going to shift the middle mouse button to pan. And what we can do now is I'm going to hold shift to grab that. So we can pull this out. And we can kind of, pull it out how we want to pull it out to get the geometry the shape of the geometry that we want. So I want this nostril to have a certain look to it. And I can, push and pull to get that look. I want there to be a ridge coming around this eye right here. So I'll pretty much do the same thing. I'll go to face select. I'm going to click here, hold shift, click here, here as well as here. I'm going to hold control, hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Now I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to then right click to get that extrusion to stay in place. Okay, now with this geometry here, we can click here, hold shift, click here as well, pull this out slightly. Now I'll click here, pull this out more here, and I like that. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold control to zoom back to take a look at our whole dragon here. So far, anyway. Okay, as I'm sitting here looking at this, I'm thinking about where I want the wings to come out. I've seen some concept of drawings, and they'll have the wings come like right from here, and they'll like come out. What I don't like about that is it makes the dragon look more insectoid, or like a like an insect. Like the leg comes right. It's almost like another leg coming right from here. I prefer that the wings come from here. And I was trying to decide what I was going to do, and I'm pretty sure I think I'm going to have the wings still come from here. So I'm going to press E to extrude like this. Pull this up some like this. I want these to be flat facing up, so I'm going to press S to scale on the Z-axis 0. Push these in some like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, and I'm just thinking about how I want this to go. I'm going to click here again. I'm going to go to right orthographic view. So I'm going to hold control. I'm going to right click right here. I'm going to press S to scale. Like that. I'm going to press S to scale on the X axis like this. I'm going to click to go to the right view again. I'm going to hold control, then right click right here. I'm on face select, which is what I want. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here. Go back to right orthographic view. I'm going to hold control. Then I'm going to right click right here. Then I'm going to right click here, then press S to scale. Like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold control. Then while holding control, I'm going to press R to put a loop cut in. I'm going to left click once. Because I only left click once, I can move this loop cut. I'm going to move it here. I'm going to left click a second time to lock it in. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, hold control. While holding control, press R to put a loop cut in. I'm going to left click once. Because I only left click once, I can move the loop cut. I'm going to move it here. I'm then going to left click a second time to lock it in, and then press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to face select. I'm going to hold Alt and then click here. We're in right orthographic mode, so I'm just going to press R to rotate. Then I'll just push up some like this. If you're like, why do you say right orthographic mode? The reason why I said that was because when you're in orthographic mode, you really don't have to, for the most part, worry about the X, Y, or Z axis as far as rotating. You can just, rotate. Okay, so I'm going to press A to deselect now. Okay, I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold control, and then while holding control, I'm going to put a loop cut in here. So I'm going to think. Yep. I'm going to right click. I was thinking, I left click once, it was still movable, and then I moved. But I didn't want it to move, so I right-clicked, and then the loop cut jumped right back into place. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here to go to face select. I'm going to hold Alt, then select here to grab that loop of faces right there. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe, hold control as well as holding the right mouse button. I'm going to select this geometry right here. I'm then going to press H to hide that geometry. I'm then going to press Z, then go to solid view. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I want to put a loop cut right here. Now this is kind of interesting. I want a loop cut right here, right? So I can have this not be so square, but I don't want this to ride up into the face. So watch this. I'm going to hold control, then while holding control, press R, right? So you see that? So it's going to try, that loop cut's going to ride up into the face. However, if you look right where the loop cut is going, it's right here. So it's coming from here and then it's riding up from here. So because I just want a loop cut here, what we can do is click here, which is where the loop cut, is coming here, then going up to there. With this spot right here, we can just press the V key, right? I'm going to right click. I ripped that geometry right there. So by ripping that geometry, I'm going to press A to deselect. When I mean rip, I separated this edge from the edge that's right next to it. It doesn't look like anything was done because I didn't move anything. However, now when I hover my mouse here, hold control, and then while holding control, press R, you can see that the loop cut goes in and it stops right where that rip is at. So now I'm going to left click once and then left click a second time to lock that in. Then I'll press A to deselect. Okay, now as far as me ripping the geometry there to stop that edge from going up, I'm not sure if that's the best to do thing to do. However, for right now, it keeps us from having to deal with geometry that we don't necessarily want at this time, and for the future, it's only this one. At least for now, it's only this one small area that is dealt with. So basically, when we go to put a loop cut here to match right here, we're going to have the same issue. We're going to do the same thing. So if you didn't quite get it there, you can see what we're going to do now. So I'm going to hold control. While holding control, press R. You can see, there's the loop cut. I don't want that loop cut to ride all the way up. So I'm going to right click, right? It's coming from right here, it being the loop cut, going where I don't want it. So we're already on edge select. So I'm going to click right here. I'm going to press V to rip that geometry. I'm going to right click to get the geometry to stay right back in place, or right in place, I should say. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm now going to hover over here again, hold control, and then while holding control, press R. And now you can see it stops right where it being the loop cut, stops right where that rip is at. So I'm going to left click once, then left click a second time to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is hover our mouse here, hold shift, while holding shift, press B to put a zoom box in. I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, okay, I'm holding Alt. I thought I would select that whole edge loop, but I didn't. So I'm going to hold shift. So I let go of everything. I didn't hold shift, sorry. I left clicked here. Now I'm going to hold shift and click here. Still holding shift. I'm letting go of shift each time I rotate the view, so I can rotate the view. Okay, so with this selected here, that it's not an actual true edge loop, I guess you could say, because I couldn't hold Alt. Whatever. I selected right here. And now with that done, I'm going to hold shift, and then while holding shift, I'm going to press S. This brings up our snap to menu. I'm now going to choose cursor to selected. The cursor went right to the center of where these edges are selected. We've been in edit mode pretty much this entire time. I'm going to press A to deselect. We're now going to click here, go to object mode. Okay, so we put the 3D cursor here because in Blender where your 3D cursor is at is where objects tend to come into Blender at. So what I'm going to do is hold shift and then while holding shift press A. This brings up our add to menu. I'm then going to go to UV sphere. When we look over to our left, we can see the options for our UV sphere. We don't want 32 segments. We want 12. So we're going to click here, change this to 12, then press enter to lock that in. We don't want 16 rings. So we're going to click here and then change this to 12 and then press enter to lock that in as well. Okay, so this is going to be our eyeballs eventually. So what we want to do is just focus on working on the eyeball right now. So to do that, what we can do is we're currently, I showed you, we're in, user ortho right now. Uh, we're also in what's called global view. We can go into local view, which will help us to just focus on what's going to be our eyeball. So we're going to click here, and now we're in local view, and you can see this says user ortho local now. Okay, and everything is still there as far as the rest of our geometry. It's just currently hidden from our view. So what we want to do is go to front view. We're in object mode even though we're in local view. So we're going to click here to go into edit mode. Now what we want to do is press R to rotate on the x-axis 90 and then press enter to lock that rotation in. Okay, so what we're going to do now is press A to deselect. We're going to click here to go to phase select. We want to select all of this right here, so we're going to press C for paint select. Then we're just going to paint. That's what paint select allows us to do. We're then going to right click to get out of paint select, hold the middle mouse button just so we can get like a kind of 3D view of the eye. We're then going to press S to scale on the y-axis -1, and then left click to lock that scale in, and that just gave us kind of like this concave shape that we want. I'm just pulling back the geometry a little bit now. Okay, so now I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. Now I'm going to press A to deselect. Then I'm going to press C for paint select and select right here. Then I'm going to right click, get out of paint select, hold the middle mouse button so I can get a 3D kind of view. I'm going to press E to extrude on the Y axis and then just take this geometry back like that. And then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, we're going to want to put a subdivision surface on this eye. What that's going to do is it's going to make the eye look nice and smooth. However, it's going to try to make things like this, which we want, soft. So what we want to do to keep this from being soft is we want to put edge loops in or extra edges in here. So the way we can do that fairly easily is we can click on edge select. We'll hold Alt, click here to select that entire edge loop. We'll hold Control. Then while holding Control, we'll press B. This makes something called Bevel work in Blender. I'm going to pull my mouse slightly. And you can see right there, when I pulled slightly, that edge basically doubled. So I'm going to left click to lock that bevel in. And then now, after I left clicked, you can see here's options for our bevel right here. So I want to take the segments to 2. So now right there, we started off with, 1 edge. Now we have an additional 2. And then where it says profile, I want to click here and change this from 0.5 to 1 and then press enter. And basically what this is here, the reason why we're doing this is so that when we put a subdivision surface on here, the rest of the eye will be soft, but we want this to still remain hard. So now I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, we want the same thing for right here. So I'm going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, I'm going to left click here. So now I have that entire edge loop selected. Okay, so with this edge selected, we're going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, press B. We're then going to pull our mouse a little. I'm then going to left click to lock that bevel in. When we look over, we can see our bevel options here. We want to take this segments from 1 to 2, and then we want to change the profile from 0.5 to 1, and then I'll press enter to lock that in. I'll now press A to deselect. Okay, with that done, I'm going to press A to select everything, and we're going to put a subdivision surface modifier on this eye. Now we could click here and then go to subdivision surface by left clicking there. However, there's a shortcut I'm going to show you, and you can hold Control, and then while holding Control, press 2, and then that essentially did the same thing. It put a subdivision surface modifier on this eye. However, it took the view up to 2 and the render up to 2 as well. So what we want to do is with this subdivision surface modifier, you can see like things are smoother. If you look here, you can kind of see like this edge thing here. If you click this makes it look like the subdivision surface modifier is actually applied. And then we have these edges here. So what we want to do is press Z and then select Shade Smooth. So now we have our eye looking nice and smooth, and you can see where our bevel's at. This area here still looks hard as well as here, which is what we want. So we're going to press A to deselect now. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to click here to come back to object mode. And now we can see we're still in local mode. So what we want to do is go back to global mode. So I'm going to click here. So here's our eye. So what we want to do is press S to scale to shrink this down. And I'm just holding the mouse button to rotate the view. And I'm kind of moving this eye somewhat into place. So this is our dragon from the front view. So we want it to be able to see from a front view. What we want is to make our eye socket fit more towards our eye now. So I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to click here to select our dragon mesh, and then I'm going to click here, then go to edit mode. I'm taking a look. And I'm going to click here to go into local mode for our dragon. I'm going to hover here, hold shift, then press B, then draw a zoom box right here. Roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm going to click here to go to face select. I'm going to click here, hold shift, then click here. I'm then going to, I just held the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm then going to press E to extrude. I'm going to extrude on the X axis in like this. Then I'm going to press S to scale down like this. So basically our eye is, pretty much horizontal now. So I'm going to press E to extrude on the X axis again. Then I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. I'm then going to choose faces to delete. Okay, so we want to pull this eye socket out some. So what we want to do is pull more than just one vertex edge or face. So we're going to press O to turn on our proportional editing tool. We're then going to click here. We'll hold shift and click here as well. We'll press G. There's the area of influence, which is that circle that's too big. So we'll roll the mouse wheel to zoom in some. Now we'll press X. So we pull just on the X axis. We'll roll the mouse wheel. I'm holding the middle mouse button to take a look. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to click here. I'm going to grab this edge right here. I'm going to press G, roll the mouse wheel to shrink down the area of influence of the proportional editing tool, then push this in some like this. I'm just holding the mouse button to take a look. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, now we're going to click here to go back to, we're in local. Here we want to go back to global, so I'm going to click here. And look at that. Wow, the eye almost looks right. Okay, so I'm going to click here to go to object mode. So now I can click the eye. I'm going to pull the eye to the side some. Like that. I'm now going to click back on our dragon mesh. I'm going to click here to go to edit mode. Pull this to the side. We still have a proportional editing tool on, which is good. I can't see the edge of the eye, but I know, at least I think I know if I click here I can grab it, so I must not have. So I'll click here. Let's see. Nope. Okay, we'll click here to go back to local. I'll hold shift, then B. That brings us right back to the eye pretty easily. I'll hold shift, then middle mouse button to pan. Let's click right here. Now click here to go back to global view. No. Pull that up. Click here. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press G. Roll the mouse wheel to shrink the area of influence. Press X and then move this in. I'm rolling the mouse wheel to increase the area of influence. Okay, so I'm going to press A to deselect. I was just holding the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press O to turn off the proportional editing tool. We're on edge select. So what I'm going to do is hold Alt and then click here to select that loop. And I'm going to press S to scale. I'm trying to make it look like I press S to scale on the Y-axis, just that the make it seem like the eye socket is more form for the eye there. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'll press A to select everything and A to deselect everything. I did that just so I know that absolutely nothing is selected. Click here, push that in, something like that, and then I'm going to press A to deselect. Then I'm going to click here and then go back to object mode. Okay, currently we have one eye, we want another eye right there, and it would be great if we could have this eye be exactly on the other side right there, and we can do that. And the way we can do that is we can click here to go to front view, so we're totally in front orthographic view, which is where you want to be. See this 3D cursor? We want to make sure this is exactly in the center. We can do that by holding shift, and while holding shift, pressing C. Now the 3D cursor is directly in the center. I'm going to hold shift, then press B, then draw a zoom box to zoom back in. I'll roll the mouse wheel to get even closer. I'll hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan now. Okay, with our 3D cursor here, what we need to do is change Blender's pivot point from its default pivot point, which is the median point, to having the pivot point actually be the 3D cursor. Okay, the way we can do that is we can click here, and then that's what I had mentioned. The default pivot point is the median point. We want to click 3D cursor. So now the pivot point is the actual 3D cursor. So now we'll click on the eyeball here, hold shift, and then while we're holding shift, we'll press D to duplicate. I'll pull to the side. I didn't click anything. I just pulled to the side so I know for sure that that eye is duplicated. I'll right click to get the eye to jump right back. Now I'll press S to scale on the x-axis -1, and then I'll press enter to lock that in. And now you can see this eye is pretty much exactly on the other side of this eye. Okay, so now that we have that set up, we want to click here and change our pivot point from the 3D cursor back to Blender's default pivot point, which is the median point, by left clicking here. So now I'll press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to turn to the side. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view up. Okay, our dragon is coming along. Let's give him some teeth. So we're going to click here to go to front view. I'm then going to right click here to put the 3D cursor there. I put the 3D cursor there because in Blender where the 3D cursor is at is where objects tend to come into Blender at. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hold shift, and then while holding shift, press A. This brings up our add to menu. We're then going to select cube. So we have our cube right here now. So now with our cube here, we're going to click here and then go to edit mode. So now that we're in edit mode, let's focus on our cube. So to do that, we're going to go out of the global mode that we're currently into local mode by left clicking here. Okay, I'm going to roll my mouse wheel back some. I'm then going to press W to bring up our specials menu. We're then going to select subdivide. When we look to our left, we can see our subdivide menu. We can see here's the number of cuts. We want to take this up to 3. Okay, with that done, we want to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Now we want to go to top view, and we're going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. We're then going to click front view to go back to front view. We're then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is press Z, then click here to go to wireframe mode. We're going to click here to go to face select. We're going to hover here. We're going to press B for box select. We're going to then left click and drag a little bit past the center point there. We're then going to press X to bring up our delete menu. We're then going to choose faces to delete. We have our mesh totally cut in half now. So what we want to do is put a mirror modifier on here. So we're going to click here and then we're going to select mirror. So now you can see we have a mirror modifier on here. We're going to put a check mark here for clipping. Then we're going to click here so that our mirrored part of our geometry looks just like the regular part of our geometry here. Okay, so with that done, we want to click to go back to top view. What we want to do is press B for box select. We want to grab and select all of this geometry right here. Then what we want to do is press R to rotate like that. We'll then push up some, then pull to the side some like this. I'll push up some more. Press R to rotate some more like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. And I'm going to go to vertice select. I'm going to hold control and then hold the right mouse button and draw a lasso select right here. Now I'm going to press E to extrude like this. I'm going to push up, push this over some, press R to rotate. Basically what's going on here is generally we want these right here, here, and here to be around. Doesn't have to be exact. It's not exact now. To be around the same length. We need about 6 lengths here to form a mouth, and that's basically what we're doing here. For this part right here, this still can be curved. We're going to extrude back again. Then we're going to want to have, the edge be straight, and then, form the rest of our mouth. So that is, what's going on right now. Okay, with these vertices here selected, we're going to press E to extrude. I'm then going to left click. So when I extrude it out, I kind of was like looking here, like, okay, it's, close enough. So now I'm going to push this in like this. Put it out a little bit more like that. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Y axis 0 to straighten that out. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We need 2 more sections. So we're going to press E to extrude on the Y axis. I'm going to left click here. Again, I'm, as I was forming, I'm kind of like looking here. So we need 1 more section. It's about the same length as that. So I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. Okay, so I'm going to press E to extrude on the Y axis. And then left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, so what we want to do now is with face select on, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate the view. I'm going to hold Alt to select this top loop of faces. I'm going to hold Alt and then press S. This brings up a special kind. This not brings up. It allows us to scale to make things thicker instead of just bigger. So I'm going to hold Shift. I'm holding Shift because Shift gives you finer control when you do things like scale as far as Blender. So I'm just pointing down. So then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Now holding Alt, I'm selecting this bottom edge of teeth. I'm going to hold Alt and then press S. Again, for a special type of scale, I'm going to hold Shift for fine controls and then just pull down. I'm then going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, now I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm then going to press C for paint select. I'm going to select all of these faces right here. I'm then going to right click to get out of paint select. I want this to be totally flat. Looks pretty flat right now, but just to make sure, I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis 0. Then left click to lock that scale in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to click here to go to front view. We're going to right click here to put a 3D cursor there. We put the 3D cursor here because in Blender where the 3D cursor is at is where objects tend to come into Blender at. So we're going to hold Shift and then press A. This brings up our Add To menu. We're then going to select Cube. We're then going to press W and then select, when we press W, our Specials menu popped up. We're then going to select Subdivide. We're now going to press A to deselect. Okay, the top part of this tooth, this is going to be our tooth, isn't going to be seen, so we're going to press C for paint select, select those top 4 faces, right click to get out of paint select, then press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm then going to go to vertice select. I'm going to click this vertice right here. I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view again. I'm going to push this vertice down just like that. Now I'm going to press A to deselect, hover over this tooth. I'll go to face select. I'm going to hover over the tooth again now. I'm going to press L to select the entire tooth. I'm then going to press S to scale. I rotate the view by holding the middle mouse button. I'm just pushing this teeth into place. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis. I'm going to press S to scale teeth down some. And I'm just moving them into the place you would normally see canines at. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis some more. Just holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Yep, I'll move them up. That was an accident. Okay, I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. Press S to scale these down more. Okay, I'm going to hold shift, then press D to duplicate. I'm going to push out the duplicate and move this into place. I'm going to press S to scale this down. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis. I'm going to hold shift, then press D to duplicate that tooth. I right click to get it to stay in place. I'm going to just push this out. I'll press R to rotate on the Z axis like that. I'll press A to deselect just to take a look. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to hold shift, then press D, then right click to get the duplicate to stay in place. I'll take this manipulator, press S to scale this down. I'm going to hold shift, then press D. Duplicate this, press S to make that bigger now. And press R to rotate on the Z axis. Okay, I'm going to hold shift, press D to duplicate, right click to get the duplicate to stay in place, pull this back. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click to get the duplicate to stay in place, pull that back. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hover here, press L, pull this to the side, some, press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L, pull this to the side, some. I'm going to hold shift, press D, then right click to get the duplicate to stay in place, and then push this over. Be careful about crossing over the middle line. Push this forward some. I'll press S to scale down some. I'll then press A to deselect, holding the mouse button just to take a look. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift and middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to press A to select everything. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis, like that. Okay, we're going to put a subdivision surface on these gum and teeth. So I'm going to hold Control. While holding Control, I'm going to press 2. And then I'm going to click here so it looks like the subdivision surface was applied. I'm then going to press Z and then go to Shade Smooth. Just taking a look. When I was a kid, I used to look at teeth and I saw sharp teeth and I used to think, oh, they're so terrible, they're sharp. Now I look at blunt teeth and I'm like, oh my gosh. To me, the blunt teeth look worse. I'm going to press A to deselect. Let's hover here. Press L. Let's press S to scale these to make these bigger. I'm going to scale them even some more. Just pull them back so they're in the gums now. Okay. So I pressed A to deselect. Now we're going to press A to select the gums and the teeth here. Okay, we're about to duplicate this. I can see some lines right here where it looks like the teeth are kind of coming through the gums. So what I'm going to do is press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L. See the lines right there? So I'm going to just take this and just pull the gums forward like that. Press A. I'm just taking a look at them. Okay, so what we're going to do now is press A to select everything. I'm then going to hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, press D to duplicate. I'm then going to right-click to get the duplicate teeth and gums to stay in place. We're now going to press S to scale on the Z-axis, -1, and then left-click to lock that scale into place. And what we did was we just scaled the duplicate teeth to turn them the opposite direction. So now we're just going to take the manipulator and pull these teeth down like this. I'm going to press S to scale on the X-axis like this. And the main reason I'm doing this is I'm just thinking when the teeth go to move so that these teeth don't run into those teeth there. So I'm going to press S to scale on the X-axis like that. Now you see how the shading on these teeth looks strange compared to the shading there. When we scaled these teeth, the normals are most likely not facing the correct direction. Normals are the direction that polygons face. So this is fairly easy to deal with. All we have to do is hold Control, and then while holding Control, press N. And that makes Blender recalculate our normals so that they're facing the correct direction. If by some chance you're dealing with a situation where you press Control N and your shading still looks strange, you can try pressing W, which brings up your specials menu, and then select Flip Normals. Okay, so now that we have this here, what we're going to do is press A to deselect. We're then going to click here, go to Object Mode. We're currently in Local Mode, so we're going to click here to go back to Global Mode. And we have our teeth here, so we're just going to take them, push them into place. We can kind of use this orange dot to line the teeth up. They're behind, so we'll just, push them into place here. I'm going to hold Shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Okay, with our teeth lined up on the center point, we'll press R to rotate on the X-axis to get our teeth on the right angle. So actually, you know what? Let me go to right view, right orthographic view. Then I'll just press R. then left click to lock that rotation in. Okay, then I'll push forward like that. Hold the mouse button to rotate the view. I'll press S to scale. I'll press S to scale on the x-axis like that. Now you can see they're starting to scale. S to scale more. Back some. Okay, now I need to make these teeth longer. Because I rotated them, I'm going to have to scale these. It's easier to scale them when things are like up and down, left and right. Basically like how this is right here. So I'm going to go back to right orthographic. I'm going to press R to rotate on the x-axis to get the teeth, basically set up like this. So now that I can press S to scale on the y-axis to take the teeth back. I'm going to left click to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button to look. Okay. I'm going to press R to rotate on the x-axis. Teeth seem like they could be wider now. So I'm going to press S to scale on the x-axis like this. Up some. Press R to rotate on the x-axis some more like that. I'm holding the middle mouse, but I'm just looking at the teeth basically. Okay, we're going to need a tongue. So to do that, we're going to click on our dragon mesh. We're going to click here to go to local mode. I'm going to hover here, hold shift, then press B to zoom in on the head. I'm going to click here to go to edit mode. Roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. We're going to put a loop cut right here. Holding the mouse button to look. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R. The loop cut runs all the way through. That's fine. I'm going to left click once and then left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. I'm just zooming back so I can see how it's going. I'm going to press A to deselect now. Okay. Okay, I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. And basically, see this right here? We can either have the tongue come from here or from here. I'm trying to think, how do I want this? So I'm going to click, I'm going to go to face select, I'm going to click here. I'm going to hold shift, I'm going to click here as well. I'm going to press E to extrude on the Y axis, like this. Then I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis. I'm going to press S to scale on the X axis, because remember this tongue has to fit inside of the teeth. So I'm going to push the tongue towards itself because the mirror modifier makes it look like it's scaling down. Okay, now I'm going to press E to extrude on the Y axis like this. I'm going to push the tongue like that. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis 0 and then left click to lock that in. I'm going to go to edge select. And this edge, push this down just so things are more evened out. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to go to face select, click here, hold shift and click there. I keep holding the middle mouse button just to turn the view. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis some more. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis like that. Okay, I'm going to press E to extrude on the Y axis. Push this down. And I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis. And I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to vertice select. I'm going to click right here, push this down, pull that back some, then push this up some. And I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan up. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Taking a look. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to press C for paint select. I'm going to click right here. I'm going to right click to get out of paint select. I'm going to press O to turn on the proportional editing tool. I'm going to press G to move some of these vertices right here. I'm going to press A to deselect. C for paint select again. Right click to get out of paint select. I'm going to press G to move this down and forward some. Click here. Pull this back and up some. I'm going to click here to go to right select. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to select all of this geometry right here. I'm going to turn off the proportional editing tool by pressing O, and then I'm going to push this forward some like this. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, this leg right here, I actually want to move up to here. So I'm going to show you how to restructure this fairly quickly. Hopefully fairly quickly. I'm going to press Z, go to solid. So basically what we're going to do here is I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, click here to select this whole edge. I'm going to hover my mouse below this edge that we have selected. I'm then going to press V, and I'll move my mouse down. So now we have this part of the mesh selected from this part of the mesh right here. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click the I to temporarily take off the mirror modifier. So I'm going to, with edge select on, I'm going to click here, hold shift, click here, click here, click here, click here, click here. Click here. I'm going to press V to try to rip that and just pull it away so I can have an easier time. Removing this piece. Go to face select. I might is that? Oh, let's say I'm going to hover here with face select on. I'm going to press A. I'm going to press L. Good. So we have all this. I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. I'm then going to choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold control in the middle mouse button to zoom back. Okay, if you're wondering why did I did that, I did it because I realized I just wanted this to be restructured. So, and it's not like it takes a super long amount of time to do it. So anyway, I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to push this leg forward here. Here, when you look, I'm going to press A to deselect. Hold control of the middle mouse button to zoom in. Okay, when we look here, we can see there's an edge here, but not an edge there. So let's hover here, hold control. While holding control, press R, then left click once, then left click a second time to lock that edge loop in. I pressed A to deselect. I'm going to go to vertex deselect. I'm going to click this vertex here, hold shift, while holding shift, press D, right click. I duplicated that vertex so I could pull it up here. With this vertex pulled up here now, I can click here, hold shift, then click here, here, as well as here, and then press F to put a face there. Now I can click here, hold shift, then click here, here, then press F to put a face there. Then I can click here, 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 as well as here, and then press F to put a face there. And then I can click here, 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 as well as here. Or all four of these vertices. Long story short, press F to put a face there. So now I'll press A to deselect. Let me grab this vertex, push this in some, push this in some, click here, push that in some. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, so as far as putting this here, what we need to do is click here, hold shift, then click here, press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, and very similar to how we first form, for the leg to go on, we're going to click here to go to edge select. We're going to click here, hold shift, then click here, holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view to get more of a 3D type view, and then press E to extrude on the X axis like this. Rotating the view to see if that's far enough. I'll take it a little bit further like that. I'll now press F to fill in that space right there. I'll then press A to deselect. Okay, now with edge select still on, I'll hold Alt, I'll select here. I'll press F to fill in that face. So basically to connect this up, one of the things we can use to make things easier is I'm going to press A to deselect. What I can do is I can hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, click right here. I select all of this area here, right? Now I look right here. See what it says verts? It says 6 verts, right? Basically, this is telling us how many verts are currently on what we have selected here. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, then click here. So now we can see right here we have 10 verts selected here. All right. So let me see. We click here, 6 there, 10 here. Okay, so this needs to have 10 verts to match up with this. Okay, so I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R, then left click to lock that in, and then left click again to totally lock that in. When I say that, I'm talking about that loop cut. So now we'll go back here. We'll hold Alt. We'll look here. We can see this has 8 verts. Still not enough. So we'll press A to deselect. We'll hover here, hold control, and then while holding control, we'll press R, then left click once, then left click a second time to totally lock that in. We'll press A to deselect. We'll hold Alt. We can see this has 9 verts now. Still not enough. We'll press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. We've got this loop right here. Let's put a loop cut right there. We'll hold control. While holding control, we'll press R. We'll then left click once, then left click a second time to totally lock that in. We'll then press A to deselect. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Alt, then click here. Now we can see 10 verts there. I'm going to press A to deselect, I'll hold Alt, then I'll click here. We can see we have 10 verts there. So because there's 10 vertices when we select this edge loop, and then there's 10 vertices when we select this edge loop, this should be fairly easy to match up now. Okay, now before we do this, does there always need to be equal vertices when you match up? No. However, it tends to be good practice. However, sometimes there are times where you want to hook up two pieces of mesh that have a different number of vertices. But for now, this is good for us. So with edge select on, I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hold Shift as well as Alt. Then I'm going to click here. I'm then going to hold Control. And then while holding Control, press E to bring up our Edges menu. I'm then going to select Bridge Edge Loops. So now we have, our connection fairly nicely right there. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click this eye to bring back the other side of our mirror modifier. So now we have a lot more space right here, which is what I wanted. This is looking kind of narrow, so I'm going to press Z, then go to Wireframe. I'm going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, I'm going to zoom back first. I'm going to just roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to hold Control, then hold the right mouse button to draw a lasso select around the entire body right there. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to pull to the side, something like this. We can see how fat our tail was getting. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis. Like that. Then I'm going to take the manipulator and push in some like this. Just hold the middle mouse button and take a look. Okay, I would like for the neck to be a little bit longer. So while we have the body selected, we'll just push down like this. Then pull back some like that. I'm gonna push in some more like that. I'm going to press A to deselect, then press Z, then go to solid view to take a look. Okay, I think I want the legs to be a little longer, so what we're going to do is press Z, go to Wireframe. We're going to click here to go to right view. We'll hold Control, then while holding Control, we'll draw a lasso select around the head. This part was missed, so we'll hold Control, hold the right mouse button, and then try to re-grab right here. Okay. Still, so we'll press Z, go to solid view, click here. Oops, go to face select, hold Shift, go here. Okay, now that we have all of this selected, we want the body, so we're going to hold Control and then press I. What we did there was we just inverted the selection. So we selected everything but what we had selected. Okay, so with the body selected, I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. We're going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Which made the legs longer, in a pretty quick way of doing it. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I also want the feet to be bigger, so I'm going to hold Shift and middle mouse button to pan up. I'm going to press Z, go to Wireframe, I'm going to hold Control, then while holding the right mouse button, I'm going to draw a lasso select around the feet like that. I don't want that, so I'm going to press C. For Paint Select, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to deselect right there. I'm then going to right click to get out of Paint Select. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press S to scale. Be careful about having this cross over, so I'll pull to the side slightly. I'm going to press S to scale more. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to press Z and then go to solid view to take a look. I'm going to hold Alt. Whoops, go to Edge Select. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, then select right here. With its edge selected here, I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis 0 to straighten that out. Push that forward something like that. And I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe, grab right here by holding Control as well as the right mouse button. And push that forward like that. And then I'm going to press A to deselect, press Z, then go to solid view. I'm taking a look. Just holding the middle mouse button to rotate. Okay, I want to change the shape of the head, so I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold Shift. While holding Shift, I'm going to press B. I'm then going to left click to draw a zoom box to zoom in on the head. Okay, what I want here is for the head to be more quote-unquote dragon-like. So I want to see where the nostril's at. I kind of want this eye to be like right here. Maybe like right there instead of right in line with that nostril. So I want this to kind of like bend up to kind of like go like that. Is my current plan. Okay, so what we're going to do is press C for paint select. We're going to paint all of this right here. I'm going to right click to get out of paint select to go to face select, which is much better thing to paint with. I'm going to press C to paint select. I want to be careful what I paint here because I don't want all of this stuff to move. I mainly want the eye to move, right? So I'm going to be careful about what I grab here. So with this selected, I'm going to press and hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, I'm going to press O. This turns on our connected proportional editing. Regular proportional editing lets you move everything. Connected proportional editing moves vertices, more than one vertice, edge, or face at a time. However, it tries to focus, for the lack of to try to give you a short explanation on what you are currently focused on. Okay, so we want to drag this up, so we're going to press G. We can see our area of influence. Let's press Z just to give ourselves more control. See how when I pull this up, the mouth is kind of pulling? So I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to try to like get that eye up. Without too much distortion here. Let's take a look. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to press C and then hold the middle mouse button to deselect right there. I'm then going to right click to get out of paint select. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to press R to rotate. I'm going to roll my mouse wheel. Taking a look. Now I'm going to press G, shrink the mouse wheels, roll the mouse wheel to shrink the area of influence, and then I'm going to press to go forward, something like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, we have an issue going on here, so let's press O once. That takes us to regular proportional editing. Let's press O again. This takes us to the point where our proportional editing is turned off. Let's pull this out to the side, something like that. Let's go to Edge Select. Select this edge. See. Looking at this tongue, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, press R to put another loop cut right there for the tongue. Looks like that geometry was pulling some in there. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm looking at the front of the face, have edge select on. I'm going to click here, hold Shift, and click here. Push this down some, like that. looking to make sure these aren't bunched up too much. Okay. I'm going to go to face select and click this face right here. With this face selected, I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to press S to scale. Pull that back some. I'm going to go to edge select, click right here. Pull this out something like that. Press A to deselect. I'm then going to go to face select. Okay, I'm going to click here, hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to press E to extrude here, like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here, hold shift, then click here. I'm going to press E to extrude on the Z axis. I'll press Z again, bring this up like this. I'm then going to press A to deselect. These basically are going to be horns. So I'm going to click here. Press E to extrude. I'll take this back some like that. Press E to extrude again, like that. I'm going to hold Alt and whoops, when I go to edge select, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, pull this to the side, something like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to go to here to go to face select, click here. Pull these up some. Press A to deselect. I'm going to go back to edge select. Pull that up some. I'm going to go back to face select. I'm going to press E to extrude again. Then press S to scale. Push that like that. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Taking a look. Holding shift and middle mouse button to pan. Okay, our dragon looks kind of thin, so what we're going to do is we're going to press C for paint select. We're going to paint right here. I right click to get out of paint select. I press C for paint select again. I'm going to hover here, then hold the middle mouse button to deselect there. I'm going to hold shift and then left click here, then left click there. Holding the middle mouse button just to make sure I have this whole shoulder area selected. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate. Okay, so we're going to scale this area up. We're going to use, instead of just S for scale, we're going to use Alt S to make this area here thicker. So we're going to hold Alt and then press S. If you hold shift, it'll give you fine control. I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover my mouse here, hold control, and then while holding control, press R. Get a loop cut right here like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold Alt, then click here. Pull to the side some. Hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Alt, then press S again. Hold Shift for fine control. Scale that up some. I'm going to press A to deselect. Hold Alt, then click here. Then hold Alt, then press S. Hold Shift for fine control. Then scale this up some. Press A to deselect. Hold the middle mouse button to take a look. Okay, we're going to go to Face Select. Press C for Paint Select. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to deselect there. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press C for Paint Select to select this geometry here. I'm going to right click. I right click so I can rotate our view. I'm holding Shift now. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Shift to deselect right here. I'm going to hold Shift as well as Alt to select here. This entire loop of phases. Okay, with all this selected, I'm going to hold Alt, then while holding Alt, press S. I'm then going to hold Shift for fine control. Scale that up. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Alt, then press S. Hold Shift for fine control to scale this up more. Like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here to temporarily turn off the Mirror Modifier. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in some more. Click here, push this to the side some. Click here, push this to the side some just to see things clearer. I'm going to click this vertex here, hold Shift, and then while holding Shift, press D. Then I'm going to right click to get that duplicate to stay in place. I'm going to push this to the side. Then I'm going to click here, hold Shift, then click here, here, as well as here. Then press F. And then I'm going to click here, hold Shift, then click here, here, as well as here. Then press F. I'm going to click this vertex or vertex here, I should say. I'm going to hold Shift, then press D, then right click. I'm going to push this to the side, and then I'm going to click here, hold Shift, then click here as well as here, press F. Then click here, hold Shift, then click here as well as here, then here, and then press F. Then I'll press A to deselect. I'll then click this to bring up back our Mirror Modifier. What I should be able to do is, see how this is all jumbled up here, this geometry? I should be able to just press C. Rotate the view. I'll press A to deselect. Press C, select here. Hold the middle mouse button to deselect there. I should be able to just, and there we have it. To have that unjumbled, you just pull. I roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to press C. Paint right here. I held the middle mouse button to deselect there. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y-axis 0, and then left click to lock that in. Then I'm going to press E to extrude on the Y-axis. Bring this back like this. Press E to extrude on the Y-axis. Bring this back like this again. Now I'm going to press E to extrude on the Y-axis another time. I'm going to press S to scale. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Okay, I'm going to push this geometry towards itself here. Don't want to cross over. Be careful as you do this. I'm going to click here with face select on. Hold shift and click here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press E to extrude. Then right click to get that geometry to stay in place. Then I'm going to go to vertice select, click here, hold shift, then click here. And then pull this out. And I just pulled out the extruded area. I'll press A to deselect. I'll hold shift then press B to draw a zoom box right here. Click here to go to face select. Press C for paint select. Right click. To get out of paint select, hold control in the middle mouse button to zoom back. And I'm just going to, okay, that won't work, I see. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm actually going to edge select, click here, zoom in, hold shift, push that back some like that. For this part of the tail, I'm going to go to edge select, which we're on, hold alt. To select the edge loop, I'm going to hold alt and S now to make this bigger. I'm going to press A to deselect, hold alt, click here, hold alt and S to make this bigger. I'm going to hold alt to select that edge loop, then hold alt and S to make this a little bit bigger like that. I'm going to press S to scale on the x-axis here. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold alt, then press S to scale on the x-axis here. Push in. Something like that. I'm going to press S to scale on the z-axis here. That. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. Roll the mouse wheel back to take a look. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here to go to right view. I'm going to press Z, then select wireframe. Hold the middle mouse button. I'm trying to select these legs here. I'm going to click this eye to temporarily turn off the mirror modifier. I'm going to click here to go right to front view. I'm going to hold control and then hold the right mouse button to drag and select here. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to press Z for solid view. I'm going to press C, select there. Okay, I'm going to click here to turn back on our mirror modifier. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button, rotate the view. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis, like that. Push down some, like that. Push down some more, like that. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to front view. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to right click here to put the 3D cursor there. The reason why I put the 3D cursor there is because in Blender, where the 3D cursor is at is where objects tend to come into Blender at. So I'm going to hold shift, then press A. This brings up our add to menu. I'm then going to select cube. I'm then going to press W and then select subdivide.